Hey, everybody, this is Craig Garber. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar. My guest today is the epitome of cool. His name is cool. He's a cool-ass player. Um, he does, and he's from New York City, which makes him really cool in my book. So we're with the one and only Earl Slick. I want to give a shout-out and a thank you to Mark Platty and Doug Bossy for making this happen, and let's get into this. Earl's a quintessential sideman. Most of you know him for his work with David Bowie and John Lennon. He's also released 7 solo albums, played on 10 Bowie albums over 40 years, in addition to many world tours with David. 2 albums with Phantom Rocker and Slick, his project. That was with Slim Jim Phantom and Lee Rocker from the Stray Cats. 2 John Lennon albums, Double Fantasy and Milk and Honey, and a Yoko Ono record, along with playing with Tim Curry, David Coverdale, Robert Smith, Ian Hunter, the New York Dolls. He also appeared with Carl Perkins and a host of other musicians, including Eric Clapton, George Harrison, Ringo Starr, and Roseanne Cash for the 1985 event called Blue Suede Shoes, a Rockabilly Session. As I said, originally from New York City, Slick was initially hired by David Bowie to replace Mick Ronson as lead guitarist for the Diamond Dogs tour in '74. He also played lead guitar on Bowie's Young Americans and on Station to Station albums, those released in '75 and '76. In '83, Slick rejoined Bowie's touring band for the Serious Moonlight tour, which supported the Let's Dance album that Stevie Ray Vaughan had played on, but he left right before the tour. Early 2000s, Slick returned to Bowie's roster, appearing on Heathen and Reality, and he toured with Bowie in support of those albums as well, and performed on the Bowie DVD and double CD called A Reality Tour. Working with producer Mark Platty, who was on this show, again, the guy who hooked us up, thanks, Mark, Slick released a solo album called Zigzag, which featured guest performances by David Bowie, Robert Smith, Joe Elliott, and Royston Langdon from Space Hog, as well as Martha Davis and the Motels. Man, when I read that, I was like, that's pretty badass that you got David, like my guest appearances are boom, boom, boom. That was
David's idea.
That was amazing, man. Slick joined the New York Dolls for a UK tour. He's contributed to movie soundtracks, and he spent a lot of time working in the UK as of late, which we'll talk about, with Glen Matlock from the Sex Pistols. That was the original bassist, who was left and later replaced by Sid Vicious. He's also been touring with Bowie's Reality touring band and the New Zealand singer Lorde. Earl and Bernard Fowler and a few other well-known sidemen were recently in the movie called Rock and Roll Guns for Hire, the story of the sideman, which Earl also narrated. If you haven't seen that movie, I would highly encourage you to check it out. Really good movie. And if you need a timeshare in Lake Tahoe, Earl is also little-known talent. Earl is also the man to see. So you just contact him on his
I'm the
social
guy
media.
It'll talk you out of buying one of them.
Man, thanks so much for coming on the show, man. I've been looking forward to this for a long time.
Cool.
Man, let's talk about the movie, The Story of the Sideman. I really enjoyed it. It was a very, very cool documentary, and something that you mentioned in there over and over again, or the theme of it, I really wanted to talk about. I found it interesting. So you're like, you come off, and I mean this in a good way, like some brash young kid from Brooklyn, and I get the sense you don't take too much bullshit from too many people, which is great. On top of that, I get the sense you're a bit of a maverick, and again, I mean that in the most complimentary way possible, because I view myself like that. That being said, even as a young man, when you first became a sideman, you had no misconceptions of your role. And it seems like you never got carried away or misled into thinking, man, I'm on stage and I got 10, 20, 30,000 people here. You were pretty focused on and clear on, they're here to see my artist and I'm here to support my artist. And I thought that was a very mature attitude to have at that young of an age. So I just wanted to open the door and like talk about that. I thought it was really like, how did you get that and all that stuff?
You know, coming from having my own bands up to that point, and my goal was never to be, I didn't even know what a freaking sideman was. You know, I mean, I don't know if the word was even being used then. When I did start to work with David, I was with guys that were very seasoned. I mean, yeah, you know, that live band that did the, David Live Record and the Tower Theater and all that stuff, that whole show, we had Herbie Flowers on bass, who he had been working with David before, but he was the premier bass player in England. So I played at T-Rex Records, you name it, Herbie played on it. Tony Newman from Jeff Beck's band on drums. Michael Kamen, who went on to be a major force in the movie industry as a composer. Michael also was the one that set me up for that, because I had been working with Michael. So I learned a lot of this stuff from Michael before I even got to that point. Michael bringing me in on some sessions here and there and gigs where I kind of got like, hey, I'm like the kid here, and these guys have been doing this, and maybe I ought to listen to them, And that came in really handy when I got with David, because I automatically knew where I should step and where I shouldn't step.
That's unusual to have the mindset of maybe I need to listen and to be sort of like a bit of a maverick. Those two aren't usually together. How did you like? I just find it fascinating that you were so open to listening.
Well, the whole idea is if you take how that all happened, I was playing in bands around Staten Island, New York at the time that I was hired by David. And one thing that I remember distinctly is waking up one day and saying, you know what, man, you and your boys and everybody around here, we're playing all these clubs, we're doing all of this, and it's only going to get so far. And if you don't make a move forward somehow, I might get stuck here till I'm 30.
God
Old
forbid.
age might set in while I'm still here. So I just trying to figure out every way possible to get to the next step. And, getting your band signed was never easy. I mean, it's way worse now, but it was never easy. And I thought, okay, I need to learn shit here. I'm not learning anything anymore. I'm stagnant. Everybody's stagnant. So I spoke to Hank DeVito, who himself went on to be very successful as a songwriter, photographer in Nashville. Was a friend of mine, was working with Michael Kamen, and I wanted to know if Michael could use a guitarist, because he was still touring with his band with David Sanborn and some really good guys. And he talked to Michael, and Michael said he didn't need a guitar player, but he needed a roadie. I took the gig.
Good for you.
I thought, okay, I'll be on airplanes, I'll be staying in hotels, I'll be like a big kid with these guys, But I wasn't stupid either. I brought my guitar with me and jammed with the band at soundcheck every day, and sooner or later I weaseled myself in, but I was still carrying the gear.
Sure. I've talked to a lot of guys that took the gig as Rick Springfield's tech, and then same thing happened, and he got the call eventually. So that's the smart hustle thing to do. Michael Kamen, for people who don't know, didn't he engineer the wall?
No, he did arrangements.
He did arrangements for the wall. Yeah, I remember that. Okay. You were in Staten Island. You must have been playing with Chasm Sultan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Him on here a long time ago.
I just spoke to Kaz about a couple weeks ago.
Good guy. Okay. How did you get hooked up with that movie in the first place, the Rock and Roll Guns for Hire? And what was that experience like?
The movie, actually, the movie, very much like the rest of anything in my career that's been of note, was basically a happy accident. I was in London with Yoko Ono doing the Meltdown Festival, which she was the curator of, and she put it together based around us doing the Double Fantasy album live for the first and only time it's ever been done. And we had, there was a really good British backup band, myself. Then we had, obviously Yoko sang a few songs, Susie Sue sang some songs, Boy George. There was a bunch of people on that. And the Meltdown people offered me, because it's a huge venue there. People don't know about this. It's got theaters, ranging from 5,000 seats down to 500 seats, all in this big complex. So they offered me a room to do what I wanted to do with it. And my then manager, Jim Kennedy, suggested that we do like a book presentation thing, because the movie was originally a book.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
It was going to be a book. And I did the presentation with Mark Adams, who at the time and still does run Bowie's social media, and I had him sit with me because I had a lot of me and him, worked together a lot.
Yeah,
David. And we went ahead and did it. And afterwards, Francis Whateley, who is, in my opinion, the best documentary producer director at the BBC, and I had done a movie called 5 Years with him. Oh, there's a spider coming down. How nice. Okay.
there you go.
Back up there, dude. See ya. Thank you. That was apropos. Anyway, yeah. And it's not even Halloween yet. So anyway, Francis was there. He saw me do the thing. We spoke a few weeks later. He said, I just thinking about this, and I think that's a movie. I think we can do it. And we did. So the concept of the book turned into that movie.
Very cool. It was, how did you enjoy doing that?
I love doing it.
Yeah.
It was a way, and I got to really put emphasis on how instrumental Francis Whateley was in this, because he saw the vision that I had when he came and saw me speak about it. So he approached the film based on that, and then he was able to glue it together into a format as a director and a producer that it all made sense and it flowed properly so that my idea got across. And I loved doing it because of that. I wasn't being pushed in another direction. He kept the direction and made it work.
That's cool. It was really cool that you narrated your voice. You're like accessible. You're like in marketing, they say when you're selling, you want to sell to the common man. You're like very accessible. It's very easy to listen to you because you're like a regular guy.
It's funny because that was one of those bombs they dropped on me a week before the final edit. They gave me a call and say, "Oh, you're going to come to London and narrate the film." What? Because they had a few of the guys there. I think it was the engineer and somebody else that had just put narrations in the spots they were needed. So I figured they were going to get somebody over there to do it, but that wasn't the case. It was me. So I was like, I tried to talk them out of it, but I couldn't. No,
that was good. It worked out. It worked out really good, I thought.
In hindsight, now I can listen to it. At first, I couldn't.
How are you about listening to your playing?
Oh, that's easy.
You have no problem.
Personal. See, the guitar is not personal. The voice is.
What do you mean by that?
In other words, the guitar is an outside piece of wood, where my voice is internal. So basically, if I fuck up, I can always blame a broken string.
Right. Okay. It was the amp. It was
sounds like shit. It just sounds like shit.
Yeah, I get you. Okay, so you've been in bands, you've been the leader of bands, and you've been a solo artist. For yourself, what are the advantages and disadvantages of being in those roles versus being a sideman? And do you prefer one over the other, or does that depend on the situation, the pay, and the people involved?
Well, it's really good if you got the right combination of people to do your own band. As with Bernard, out of every band I've ever had, going back to day one, I think that the best combination I've had as with a lead singer frontman has been Bernard. And so it's great to do that. I love doing it. But on the other hand, as far as being a sideman goes, I enjoy it just as much in a different way if it's with the right people. If it's not with the right people, then it could really not be, it could be turned into a nightmare.
Yeah. Are you able to, is there like, you've been around a while, so you know who's who, but is there some sort of assuming the task at hand and the compensation makes sense, is there some sort of a vetting process? You don't have to say what it is, but do you have some sort of a vetting process that, I won't do heavy metal? I mean, something that, that's got to line up philosophically with you musically?
It has to line up with who I am and what I do.
Yeah.
If I'm called to do something and it's in line with what I would do naturally if I was just sitting around the house playing my guitar or doing my own gig, that's fine. But if it's something where I'm expected by them to be a chameleon, I don't do it.
Yeah.
Because I can't do it.
Right. Have you always been like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've been pretty true to your, I don't want to sound so cliched like creative, but you've been true to what feels right for you musically.
Well, yeah, because I've made the blunder of doing it the other way. And it always backfires because when I did gigs like that, as the gig would progress, actually it would happen pretty quick. Usually by rehearsals, I'd go, oh no, this ain't work, man. I mean, I can't be that.
Yeah.
And then you try to extricate yourself out of it, or you just grin and bear it till it's done. And I don't do that anymore.
Yeah, sure. I get
It's been a long time since I've done that.
That's great. All right. What was your first, what would you like, I guess, big break, or what you'd consider your first break in the music business?
I think my first big break was really meeting Michael Kamen, because Michael took to me, I took to Michael, and he saw something in me that of value, I guess, and that I didn't necessarily see. So he would call me in to do things. I had a band that he produced a few demo tracks for. I worked with him in his band before he actually got into the composing. He actually called me in to do a session with Dr. John when I was like 19 or 20.
In the city?
Yeah, at Bell Studios.
That's wild.
Me and Mac and Pop on bass, a couple of Nevilles were there, and it was really cool. Michael would call me in on that kind of stuff. And so Michael not only was a big influence, he was a teacher and a mentor.
Yeah, I'd heard you say that on an interview, that you said he was a mentor of yours.
Yeah.
Okay, so Bowie, and I hope this is the only question I ask you that you probably been asked before, but I think my listeners would want to know how you hooked up with David. And also, you were pretty much in and out of his musical life for 40 years. And I know you've gone, in the movie you said he fired you and rehired you many times. If you're comfortable, and without, like, I'm not looking for gossip or nothing, but I was curious, what were some of the reasons you got fired and then rehired?
Well, let's address the first half first. Is the way I got the gig was through Michael Kamen.
Oh.
Yeah, because David, this is really weird how stuff happens. Michael was composing already, and he composed music for the Joffrey Ballet in New York City. David was there and liked the music and wanted to meet the composer. So we met Michael, and through the course of the conversation, he suggested to Michael that he needed a musical director to put this show together, which became, the Diamond Dogs show. And I'd asked Michael if he knew any guitar players, young guitar players, unknown guitar player, that would be able to pull this gig off, having just lost Mick Ronson. And Mick had left the band. Michael suggested me, and an audition was set up through that. And that's how that happened.
Isn't that, like, when you look at shit like that, isn't it like if Bowie had gone to a different play or a different musical?
Yes.
I mean, so let me ask you this. Where do you sit? I'm just curious because I'm trying to learn and figure out my own position on this. So I always like to get feedback and input from others. Where do you sit with how much of that is like the, random luck, and how much of it is, call it whatever, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it?
It's not magic at all. It's not, a lot of people talk about visualization and so on and so forth. And sure, that's important. But what it is just doing what's in front of you and pushing the envelope, thinking outside the box, and not being afraid to fall on your ass.
Yeah, man.
You know what I mean? You put yourself out there, and if somebody laughs at you, fine, go to the next guy.
Right.
That was a big part of it. And also it was, using the Malcolm Gladwell
10,000
outlier.
Yeah.
It comes from being you're not going to follow what everybody else does. And I didn't do that consciously. I just thought that way, you know, and these events took place as a result of everything that happened before them steering me to a certain point.
Right.
It could have been Bowie. It could have been anything else. Who knows what it could have been? It just happened to be Bowie. But that's because, you know, maybe hooking up with Michael Kamen and staying very visible in the New York City area, I was making a name for myself as a guitarist without even knowing it. I had no clue.
Right.
So when that thing came up, it was like, whoa, okay, what's this? Because I really wasn't that well versed on David Bowie as an artist or anything. I had one Bowie record. I had Aladdin Sane.
Right.
That's all I had. So, yeah, I just took it from there and went, okay, this looks like a good opportunity.
And boom.
I need to do it.
Man, I love hearing these stories because I agree I don't think it's magic either. I think it's based on a series of events, and you sticking your neck out is really important. You know, yeah. I think that's in anything where you're getting connected or become successful.
Yeah. I mean, whenever you stick your neck out, there's always somebody waiting there to chop it off, and you just have to be, ready and able to deal with that when it comes up. It's not even if it comes up.
If it comes up.
It's going to come up. And that thinking that, I don't know where that came from, but that's very helpful in a way that a lot of people shoot themselves in the foot that deciding ahead of time that this can't happen and that can't happen. Well, if you decide that, that's what you're going to get.
It's true. Yes, man. I'm a firm believer in that. Yeah, man.
Think about it. You had to jump over something when you were a kid. Well, I can't jump over that 3-foot fence. You're not going to make it.
Right. Yeah,
now,
totally.
Even if you say you can, you still might blow it. But you're going to definitely blow it if you've decided ahead of time. That's
No, totally, man. I agree with you. What were some of the lessons or takeaways that you got out of your experience? Oh, no, fired and hired. Are you good to talk about some of that?
Yeah.
Okay.
The first time I quit, here's a work of genius for you.
Yeah, there you go.
We did the Diamond Dogs tour. The live album came out. There was a break. And in the interim, I put together a band and signed with Capitol Records. Then David decided he wanted to do Station to Station. So we did that. And just as we got to the point where we were ready to leave for the tour at the end of 76, end of 75, because the tour was in 76, we had some business people who shall be unnamed because they don't deserve their names to be in public in any form.
Right on, man.
That basically pitted me and David against each other. And because the two of us, let's say, were a bit compromised at the time, chemically, that we just were not on our game and didn't see that coming. And it turned into a thing where I felt I was against the wall and had no other choice but to leave.
Wow.
And that's what I did.
Good.
So that was the first thing.
That was good how you said that. We were compromised. Chemically compromised. That's a new one. I hadn't heard that in 600 interviews. Earl, that was good.
They should have special parking places for folks like that, you get you. Anyway, and we worked. We had no contact until 83. When he got at a jam because Stevie Ray Vaughan left right before the tour, and they called me. David, not being silly, thought, okay, who can I get that could do this in short order? Because I only had 3 days to learn the entire Serious Moonlight show.
Wow.
And I had to fly overseas to do it. So I was in Los Angeles at the time, and I had to fly to Brussels, Belgium, where the band was in full dress rehearsals, and learn the stuff in my hotel room. And I had three days before the first gig. So I did that tour. And then at the end of the tour, David said, we're going to go back in the studio in January and do another record. And I never heard anything. Never called, never fired me, nothing. And I got a call from Carmine Rojas say, what's going on, man? I said, I haven't heard from anybody. Yeah, we're in doing the record. I said, what record? He said, you know, I don't know if that's being fired or what, but you know, I never took it personally, really, because I looked at it like, hey, it's his band. He could do what he wants to do. Now, it'd be nice if he actually called me and fired me as opposed to like did nothing.
Yeah, ghosted you, yeah.
You know, but yeah, I just looked at that. I just moved along. You can't wallow in that shit, you know? And it happened. I got fired again after I rejoined in 2000. I think it was 2002. I get a call from a friend of mine saying, oh, so you don't hear this on the street. Looks like David's got this other guitar player. You're not going to be carrying on anymore. And I just thought, okay, I've seen this movie before.
Yeah, right.
And then a couple of months later, this shows you how it didn't affect me. I've been emailing with David and, oh, let's get a cup of coffee. I'm in town. Great. You know, long story short, when I got into town, he wasn't feeling well. He was in the studio. And I went over. He was recording some vocals for Heathen. And I went over to the studio, and he was sick, you know. And
this is in L.A. or here or in the city?
New York. It was at Looking Glass Studios. And we were just talking after he did his vocals. He said, oh, by the way, what are you doing next April? I know what's next. He goes, we're going out. You coming? I said, yeah. That was that.
That's wild.
I know.
You mentioned this in the movie, and I really respected this. And we talked about this when we spoke last week, I think. I thought it was really mature. You said, look, he fired me. He didn't want me on the record. I wish I would have, you know, it would have been nice if he told me or somebody formally told me than to find out like by, you know, ghosting. But I really, you said, hey, what's his thing? He could do whatever he wants. And I, you know, I respected that attitude because I think, I mean, I just can't stand when people expect in general, you know, me, you know, pity, you know, poor me, or why didn't, you know, I just, that doesn't resonate with me. You were just like, okay, it's his gig. He could do what he wants. So, end the conversation, move on. What's next in my agenda?
And plus, I already knew the drill. I understood his operating system, basically. Yeah. So anything that happened was not a surprise, including the last record that we did together was the next day. And in 2012, I didn't know he was making a record. He brought in certain band members and other people that signed, you know, non-disclosure agreements. So even though I was talking to the guys while they were making the record, nobody said anything to me, you know, which is, that's fine. They made an agreement. You stick to the agreement. So funny enough this is how weird shit is that I have a friend, he's a doctor, John Weisswasser, Dr. John, the other Dr. John. He does things like builds airplanes and cars. So he built this Cobra. And we went for a drive in the Cobra, and something went wrong, and the son of a bitch caught fire with us in it.
Wow.
And it hit all the news feeds online, and DB saw that. And so I get an email, hey, I just saw this thing. Are you okay? I said, everything's good. Oh, a couple of hours later, I got an email. So how are you? What's going on? Whatever, it's all fine. And this kind of went on over a course of about 48 hours before we got to the point and said, hey, by the way, I'm making a record. You need to come in and play on it.
Did you kind of know that this, or have a sense that, okay, I'm wondering this is where this is probably going to go?
Yeah, I didn't know it on the first email, but after he started asking me questions, I knew where he was going, and I didn't say nothing because I said, let him just go where he's going. I don't know what's going on here, you know? And now, if you look at that, and you look at, you know, the fact that, like you said earlier, it could have been anybody as far as what if David didn't go to Michael Kamen's show that night? Could have, you know what I mean? Yeah. Same thing here. Is that, and I didn't burn a goddamn car down, you know,
right.
In it, you know.
You might not have been up on his radar.
I probably would not have been on his radar.
Wow. It doesn't that, but I find those things so, just like, I don't want to say magical, but just like, you know, crazy, wild, you know, miracle. I don't know what the right word is, but that stuff happens. It's really kind
It
of
does
wild.
happen. The thing is, that's the beauty of life, because if you're the kind of person that needs to know what's going to happen next, whether it's in an hour or tomorrow or next year, you kind of box yourself. I don't really need to know. And I also, I'm quite aware that whatever it is that I know that's going to happen in an hour or tomorrow or next year probably won't happen the way I'm visualizing it.
Yeah, right.
Or happen at all, for that matter.
Yeah.
So the beauty of it, life or this business, is that the uncertainty to me is a buzz.
Yeah.
Now, I know it's gonna. Now, what happens next could really suck.
Yeah, right.
But that's part of the deal.
Right.
Just because you have a plan that looks good doesn't mean it's not going to suck.
Yeah.
So why get married to this plan or idea that's going to flip anyway? So just go with it, and it's more fun that way.
So you're pretty good then about being in the present.
It's the only place to be. And look, I get caught, not in the past. I never get caught in the past. I'll get caught in the future sometimes going, wait a minute, stay out of there. You're not in the results business here. Just,
yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've really worked hard at doing that, man. And I have found it really, and I did it because I wanted to get rid of stress. And it really does. I mean, you have a lot less stress in your life when you're here and nowhere else.
Yeah. Because you cause stress by having these preconceived ideas and things that never work out the way you think they are. And you get all stressed out. If you don't have that, doesn't mean you're not going to get stressed, but it won't be as bad. It
won't be because you caused it.
Right.
That's
well, you do kind of cause most of your own stress, but even just the way you handle things, And but no, you're right. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, I really, my life has changed since I did that. Actually. All right. I'm sorry, I lied. There's going to be 2 questions that I'm going to ask you that you've asked before. John Lennon, how'd you get hooked up with John?
Another really weird twist of fate was that. My then manager got a call from Jack Douglas about me playing with an artist that he was producing, but he wouldn't say who it was. So I automatically figured, okay, it's obviously not Joe Blow. He's got something going on here that's significant. And because he wouldn't tell us who it was, I started to think about it. Who the hell could this be? So it was easy to do the just to backtrack to what Jack's history was, because I was very familiar with Jack's history, everything from Cheap Trick, Aerosmith, and all that. And I thought, well, it's neither one of those, because if it was, there would have been some kind of rock and roll news about somebody left the band or, whatever the case would be. And I started to think who he worked with, who could be somebody that he couldn't really or didn't want to divulge right away. And I called. Just it says my internet is unstable. I don't know. Anyway, I said, when he calls next time, just say the word John Lennon and shut up and see what happens. So
you told your manager this?
Yes, and she did that, and what happened was Jack went dead silent. There was our answer.
There you go. Oh, that was clever, man. I like that. That was very good.
Make him say it. So if he says nothing, he just said it.
Yeah, of course. That was good, man. I like that.
Yeah. Well, I don't like, being kept in the dark when somebody approaches me about something. Give me the damn information,
Well, yeah, plus you want to get excited about it and happy about it.
Yeah, you also want to know what it is just because you want to know what it is,
Yeah.
And so I thought, okay, that's the best way to flush this one out.
That's good, man. I like that.
Yeah.
I learned this. I'm going to put that in my toolbox. You said that working with John is when you felt least like a sideman than with anyone else you work with. If you could talk about that.
Let me kind of readdress that one. With David, I really didn't feel like such a sideman either one. A lot of other people I have, when I've gone in the studio or done gigs, and feeling like a sideman, that's not necessarily a bad thing. You know, but with John, it was a lot more personal, and it was a lot more, he liked the idea of being part of the band and not being John Lennon and his hired band and hired guns.
Okay.
He wanted to be part of a thing. You know, I guess, you know, looking at it, you know, in hindsight, you got a kid from a working class town that ends up in a situation that is beyond all comprehension.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of weight on anybody's shoulders. So I could see that, hey, I just want to be one of the guys to that, you know?
Yeah.
You know, so in that way, it took away that hired hand feeling. And with David, when we would go in the studio or even live, it was very similar. It was a completely two different relationships that I had with these guys. But at the end of the day, when it came to the working part, it was very similar. Even though David wasn't quite as accessible as John all the time when we worked.
Even for you guys?
Personally, not work-wise.
Okay. Yeah. So like where John would sit and have a beer with you, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it. Where David was more business and easy.
Not necessarily business. It was more like John was more, he was a lot more available to speak about personal things where David never really was. And I really didn't want to have those conversations with him in the first place.
Yeah.
I thought we have a great working relationship. We're friends when we work. I don't need to go out and have coffee or tea and biscuits with David on my days off.
No, I get it. I totally get it. Where
No
John
disrespect to him.
Okay. So John would come and share like stuff, you know, hey, I got this going on and what's going on in your life? You know,
right.
Okay. I get it.
It would happen with David on a rare occasion. With John, it was pretty much a normal occurrence. So
it sounds like it's more like a function of their personalities than anything else. Where
that's all it was.
Yeah. It sounds like David was a little more to himself and John was more open.
Yes. Yeah.
Very cool. Okay, I'm going to mention some names of some artists you worked with. Thanks for sharing that. That was really interesting. Thank you. Talk about how you got the gig with these guys and maybe a cool or interesting story about working with them, and start with David Coverdale.
David Coverdale. Oh, you get to talk about my timeshare thing now.
I got to tell you, when I heard that, I was fucking peeing in my.
It's in the movie, isn't it?
Yeah, I was just fucking. Yeah. I was like, Chris, you know what, man? I could see you with your New York accent in fucking Lake. I was like, what must that have been like? I mean, like,
you know what? That whole thing was a vehicle for me to get the hell out of the music business, because I hit 1993. I started hitting a wall. The kind of gigs that were coming up I didn't like. I couldn't find the right guys to put together something that I would be happy with. And I started to get all stressed out and twisted. And I thought, you know what, man? I promised myself a long time ago, if this became this, where it was causing me more stress than happiness, and I'm out.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know what to do. So I basically had a major meltdown and said, okay, fuck this. And I always loved Lake Tahoe because every time I'd gone there, it's a very serene place. You know, it's a summer. The summer there gets crowded. The rest of the year during ski season, it's only the weekend. So you're up in the mountains with this beautiful lake. And during the week, there's nobody there. I thought, okay, that's nice. It's refreshing. It's comforting. And it's completely another world than I'm in now. The only way that I'll be able to step away from this business is I have to go someplace absolutely like the far side of the moon.
Yeah.
And Tahoe was it. And all the timeshare was a vehicle to make money, to just support myself and be someplace where I could just, you know, be happy.
Yeah.
I didn't care what I was doing at that point, as long as I felt okay. So
that is, I really give you credit for that. Took a lot of balls, man.
It didn't. I felt like I was kind of forced into a corner, and that was my only way out. So I just took it, you know.
Yeah, but I think that's.
I was worried about my sanity at that point. I mean, it really was, you know. I mean, because you're thinking it's the only thing you've ever done your entire life, and it's going absolutely as wrong as it could get.
Yeah.
Now, what do you do? Because after a while, you can't just keep calling people up looking for a new gig and a new idea, because you start looking like an asshole and desperate.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've been an asshole before, but desperate, no. Well, the problem is when you're desperate and you need asshole.
money, and you're making those calls, the fucking stress.
Oh, it's awful.
Because I've been there. I've been self-employed 21 years. So it is not pretty, man.
No, it's not pretty. And in the course of that, I was at the tail end of working the timeshare thing. And I got a call from David Coverdale's guy, and he wanted to know if I would go out on the road with David. He was going to be doing Whitesnake. And I said, look, I'm not the right guy.
Yeah.
And I wasn't trying to avoid anything. I'm not. That's not what I do. And so he came back at me with an offer. And I reiterated what I said the first time. Then he came back with, and the offers kept going up. And I'm going, shit, I wish I'd have done this a long time ago. So I eventually made it clear, and that it had nothing to do with David Coverdale or Whitesnake. I just wasn't the guy. And he said, well, when David gets back at the first of the year, he'd like to do some writing. I said, fine, you know, and just forgot about it. And then they called, and I spoke to David, and we sat down over a period of 6 months or so, because he lives in Lake Tahoe too.
Oh, that's why he reached out to you. I was curious. That was like random.
Right there.
Okay.
So we got together, we hit it off, and we wrote an album together. It was good. It was a good experience, you know. We never did get on the road with the thing or anything, but we made a good record. It's called Into the Light.
Is that it was kind of bluesy?
Yes, that was the idea when me and David were putting it together. He said, I want to do something that goes back further to my original roots than Whitesnake. And that to me made perfect sense.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
so
in Whitesnake, it doesn't make sense.
But so we wrote the songs based on that idea behind it. Yeah. So it was a good experience. We had fun and we made a good record.
How did you feel like, okay, 4 years, was it weird? Was it good? Was it like just something to do? What was your reaction about it?
It was a little, the concept of it in my head was weird. But when we were doing it, it was completely natural, you know, once we started to write and record all that. But, you know, the idea of it was when I left the business to go to Lake Tahoe, it wasn't like, okay, I'm going to take a break and come back. No, I'm gone. I'm done. And I never put any restrictions on that or any preconceived ideas like, okay, if I give this up, then, you know, somebody's going to call me up with the perfect gig in a couple of years and I'm back in business. I never thought that. I just said, I'm putting this thing down and I'm done with it. So there was, I mean, I had gotten offers from a few other people. I was hard to track down at the time. I made myself very hard to find.
Right.
And I did get offers from a few other people who I turned down flat.
Yeah.
It wasn't even because who they were, because there were a couple of really good ones in there. I just I wasn't ready to do it.
Right. It's good that you were open-minded enough, though, to at least sit and meet with David to see where it went.
You know what? It was easy because we were right there.
Yeah.
All I had to do was jump in my car and drive 15 minutes. And if it didn't work, there's nothing to lose. Really.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. Were you single at the time, married or?
Single.
Yeah. Okay. So everything was, your life was pretty simple.
It was simple. I had me and 2 big dogs and that was it.
Yeah. Tim Curry.
Tim. That's another Michael Kamen thing, because Michael produced that record, Simplicity. And Michael would bring myself and David Sanborn in on a lot of these albums, even though we wreaked havoc on them, we got the job done. And it was a really fun record because Michael hired a reggae band, a real one, called Jamala. And so they were the main band, and me and Sanborn. And we made a really good record. I think it was the last album Tim made, because at that point his acting career really started to take off. It became, you know, I got a friend out of it. We made a good record, and you know, we had fun. I don't know how much fun Michael had dealing with.
Well, he was probably used to you. Wouldn't have brought you on.
He was used. He knew what he was going to get.
It's a return on investment. You know, you get this, but you get that back.
You got it.
You know, that's how
You
it
got to
works.
put up with these guys, but they'll deliver.
Yeah. Plus, it's fun in the end.
Yeah,
You know,
it was fun.
Ian Hunter.
Ian Hunter was that was 1976. I had done a few records and a few tours with my own band, and things weren't quite working out with that. And I found out that Ian, this is funny. Mick left again.
Mick Ronson left Ian.
Yeah, something happened and Mick wasn't working with him. So I got in touch with Ian, and I was living in LA, and I flew to New York, and we hit it off, and we went to England, put together a band, started writing some tunes, and then came back here, and then went to Canada to record the Overnight Angels album, which came with a whole slew of fun things like burning the house down with us in it up in the mountains while we were recording. So we toured in Europe, in the UK, and when it came time to tour in the States, his manager had a complete meltdown, nervous breakdown, and really pissed off Columbia Records and a bunch of other people, and they didn't release the record in the States.
Wow.
And we couldn't keep that band together. You know, there's got to be some income in there.
Sure.
So, you know, we ended up disbanding. I know Ian was not happy with that, and he was upset. But, you know, at the time, I can understand that. You know, but we couldn't all stick around with no income.
Yeah, what are you supposed to do? Yeah. On your speaking video, where I saw that, you made a comment about, ironically, you and Mick were friends.
Yeah, we were. We
were
good friends.
Yeah, that's funny. Robert Smith, that's another guy. Musically, it didn't, a knee-jerk reaction didn't seem like it'd be a thing.
You know, it was a funny thing is that when me and Plotty went in to do that record, originally it was going to be instrumentals, but not like a hard rock or a rock and roll record. It was going to be a different kind of a direction, mainly because I just wanted to see if I could do it. It was way the hell out of my comfort zone. And I thought, I don't want to, or I'm not feeling a guitar wank record. So let's do something different. And in the process of that, the first person on board was Bowie, because before we even started the record, I called up Plotty and said, look, I've been writing this stuff and it's actually starting to take some kind of shape, because I had no intentions on writing it for a reason. I was just writing. So I said, let's demo some of this stuff. And I didn't know David was sitting there and hearing Plotty's end of the conversation, and David had gotten on the phone and said, so I hear you and Mark are going to be working on some stuff. I said, it looks that way. He said, well, you know, you think you might need somebody to do some percussion or backing vocals, or you know, and it morphed into him singing a song. So I sent him, you know, a bunch of very rough guitar chord change demos, and he picked the one that became the song that he sang on.
That's nice. It sounds like he was very humble in how he you know,
he was,
yeah, which is really cool.
Yeah. And that led to making a record that wasn't going to be all instrumental, but was going to have guest vocalists on it. You know, because I had a friend of mine who was with Epic Records for a long time, and he was out on his own, and he's the guy that I sent out to get the deal.
Okay.
His name was Frankie LaRocca, and he suggested that maybe we could get some people that I knew that you know, that could contribute to the record vocally, because Carlos Santana had a very big success before that with the same thing. And I always liked Robert, and I met Robert when we did Meltdown with David. And,
okay.
And it was during the course of us already putting the record together, and suggested that, you know, Plotty thought about it, because Plotty had worked with The Cure. And I said, that's a great idea. So I sent Robert something, and he came up with a great song as well.
That's awesome, man.
So it wasn't all that out of the box in terms of degrees of separation, let's say.
I read or saw you say something about, I know Keith Richards played on one of your tracks when you were in Phantom Rocker and Slick. How the hell did you get that to happen? And what was that like?
It was this is a funny one. It was an accident again. We finished the Phantom Rocker and Slick record, the first album, and I was in Los Angeles, and Steve Thompson and Mike Barbiero, the producers, were mixing the record at Media Sound in New York City, and I was supposed to come in. Steve Thompson called me from the studio. I was supposed to be coming in the next day because he had got the mixes far enough where we needed to come in and start listening to them with him, And he called me to say that, look, I got something going on here that you're gonna do. I said, what are you talking about? He said, Bowie and Jagger just covered "Dancing in the Streets" as a one-off single to contribute to Live Aid. I said, okay, I'll see you tomorrow. He says, well, Jagger's here now, and he wants you to come in now. I said, well, if I take a red eye, I get there at 6 a.m, or I could take the other flight and get in later and do it the next day. And that wasn't acceptable. And Jagger ended up getting on the phone and sort of berated me for a minute. And I said, okay.
So you had to take the red eye.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
I took the red eye, got in. Mick was there for a couple of minutes. I kind of got the gist of what he was talking about. I did the guitars, and the process Mick said, by the way, it's my birthday tonight, and we're having it at the Palladium in New York City. So
wait a minute, where you had just come from?
No, I came from LA to New York.
Oh, okay. You came from LA to New York. Okay. Yes. I thought you were going from New York to LA.
No,
wow.
No,
okay.
New York. So he invites me to the party. So I go that night, and it's just crazy. I'm in there, and I go into John, and Keith's in there.
In the bathroom.
Yes.
Right.
And the light goes off in my head. Wait a minute. We're mixing the record. We have the studio. Keith is here, and there's a song that would be perfect for Keith. So I just asked him if he would do it. And Slim Jim and Lee were there. And there's more to that story that we don't really need to divulge. We had refreshments, let's say, while we were having this conversation.
Good.
And
good on you, man. So long story short, Keith shows up, not on the day he was supposed to be there, 5 days late. At which time I had thought, I don't know if he's coming, and I had a commitment to be the best man at a friend's wedding in the Virgin Islands. So I fly to the Virgin Islands, hoping I'll get back in time for Keith, but Keith was in the studio. He showed up the day after I left to go to Virgin Islands. Oh, wow. And you had people there that knew what needed to be done.
Oh, yeah. We already pulled the track up, and I knew what I wanted, and, so Keith came in, and, wouldn't have been any better or not better had I been there,
Sure, yeah.
So, I mean, that's as far as the experience part went. It was, the best part of it was asking him, and the circumstances under which that happened were pretty damn funny.
Yeah, that had to be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Again, again, it goes back to what you said, you got to be willing to stick your neck out there. I mean, he might have said, no, go fuck yourself. And exactly. Okay, no big deal. But if you don't ask, you're certainly not going to play on your record.
Hell no.
Yeah, that's great, man. So you took the red eye back into the city, literally walked into the studio, and you had to play this stuff for Mick?
Yeah, I walked into the hotel, dropped my bags off, and ran to the studio.
Wow. Holy crap. Okay, you've been doing a lot of things over in England for the last year or two. I was curious what kind of stuff you've been working on, and how did that all come about?
What happened is that in 2016, I went over there in April of that year with Bernard Fowler, and I had gotten a request in 2015 to Station to Station album as a limited amount of dates in the UK, which I turned down because I thought they had ideas on who they wanted to sing it, and everybody that they came up with was very much a Bowie influenced clone.
Right.
And I thought, you know what, the boss ain't gonna like that one fucking bit. And so I turned them down, and I finally said, look, there's only one way this is gonna happen. It needs to be Bernard Fowler, period. And, they really didn't have a lot of choice but to agree to it. And they're glad they did, because it turned out great. And the reaction we got, and the fact that we sold out all the gigs there and in Japan, gave me the idea that I said, you know what? I couldn't have done this in the States. There's no way. Not the way things are there now.
What do you mean?
Well, to be able to book gigs like that,
Okay.
get asses in seats and get paid what you're worth is not the easiest thing around here.
Okay.
But the UK is way smaller. The fan base there is rabid, plus it's condensed into one island.
Yeah. Okay. I see what you mean. You meant from
mean?
from a management administrative standpoint.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. I totally get that.
And the expenses there is you don't have to fly from city to city. Everything's on the ground. So, but what I realized after we did it was that the reaction to it was way better than I had anticipated. So I thought, you know what? This seems to be a really compatible place for me to be. So I just, made a point of working it to make sure that I could do more things there.
Very cool. What were some of the cool projects that you did there that you could talk about?
Well, we did that. I'd already done the Meltdown Festival there. I'd done a number of events for the Cavern Club.
That's the original club where the Beatles played, right?
Yeah. Yep. I did a speaking tour last September, where we did about 12 of them through the UK. And we sold them out, which I wasn't sure we would.
Just you speaking, or was it a show? Keep going, and then we'll come back to that. I want to talk about it.
When we booked it, I thought, well, I'm either going to take a beating here, or it should, I don't know, it's going to go one way or the other.
Yeah.
And as it turns out, it went well. And that really helped because I could actually talk to Brits over there and answer questions and kind of get a clue from on a personal level where the fan base was at. And them having a really good time and me having a really good time. And I thought, wow, I get paid for this? This is great, And then having worked with Glen Matlock before, because we had a band around 2007 or so for a short time with myself, Glenn, Keena Duffy, fashion designer friend of ours who sings as well, and Clem Burke from Blondie. And we did a few gigs in New York, but we really couldn't keep it together because the geography was insane. Glenn's in London, I'm in New York with Keenan, and Clem was on the West Coast. So, but I did stay in touch with Glenn. So we did do some one-off events here and there together. And then, we've been doing the Glen Matlock thing featuring Earl Slick. I got a promotion.
There you go.
And so that's been really good. We just did Kenny Jones did the 50th anniversary of Brian Jones' demise. Was over there with Glenn, and there was a lot of good people on the bill, including the Water Boys, who I sat in with, which was great.
Yeah, you said that. That was cool.
Yeah, I'm sitting in with them again in a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks.
Back out there. You're going back out there.
We're going to be in New York.
Oh, cool, man. Where are you playing?
Irving Plaza on the 23rd.
That's cool, man. Very cool.
So, there's all kinds of things. There's a lot of business to do there. There's gigs, and it just seems to flow better there for me.
That's great, man. I'm glad you're open to that. Talk about, I want to turn people on to the speaking thing you're doing, because I watched the video. It was really cool, really interesting, very genuine, and you're good at it. So talk about that.
The way I'm doing them now, see, that was more focused towards the sideman book, whereas now, I talk for about, this is the way this rolls, is that there's a friend of mine named Jesse Smith over in London who basically keeps me on time, gets me from point A to point B, because left to my own devices, I don't know what might happen. And he sets it up on the stage when we get to the venue with 2 chairs, a little amp and a guitar. And he sits with me and he prompts me at the beginning. We have a timer on the floor for 45 minutes. And he'll prompt me, and then I'll just start talking about my career, it generally giving people like an extended bio with little stories interweaved in it. And after 45 minutes, I take a 10-minute break, and then the floor is open for Q&A, which probably goes another 45 minutes.
That's really cool.
And that part's really more fun than the talking part is. because I get to interact with the people. And then after that, I'll set up a tape. They set up a table, and I'll sign some autographs and do all that kind of stuff. But it's a good way for me to, meet people under circumstances that I would not normally get to do.
And you're doing this again coming up.
Yeah, November.
That's awesome.
I don't have any dates in place yet. I'm still waiting for my promoter in UK to give me the dates.
I want to go back. I forgot to ask you one question. You were with David so long. I was curious if there were any takeaways or lessons that you got out of your experience with him. Any either music, business, entertainment, anything that you.
Every aspect of what I'm doing and what I've done, I've learned a whole lot from David, because if you look at how young I was when I got involved, I was a sponge at the time. And I learned everything from how to work a stage, how to stay out of his way, how to be up front when I needed to be, keeping an eye on unsavory business types, everything.
Go ahead. Hold on a minute. Back up. Be more specific. Not like gossip, but how did you like be more aware? How did you get hip to that? Like, was there?
I got hip to that by watching the shit he was going through.
Oh, because he was probably having every blood-sucking motherfucker in the world.
You got it. Yeah, you got it. I mean, his management turned around and bit him in the ass, and the next management turned around and bit him in the ass. And I saw all this, and I'm going, Christ, if they're going to bite him in the ass, they'll swallow me whole. So I better keep an eye on this stuff.
Yeah, that's smart.
I learned a lot of pretty much of everything, and most of it, I got to be honest, it did come from David, because, as I said, I mean, it was a very impressionable point in my life and my age too.
Yeah. What good lessons though. Top three, if you can, just like knee-jerk reaction to what are the top three experiences you've had musically?
God, I think the first really big one wasn't even the beginning of Bowie. It was Station to Station, because making that record was different than anything I'd done before. I think it was kind of different than anything David had done before, really. I mean, it was a lot of experimenting in that record, and we did some, the whole experience was that we went in the studio with the band and we cut the tracks, and then me and David spent a lot of time afterwards doing a lot of those overdubs, and just throwing ideas back and forth. And it was definitely unusual at the time. So that would be the first really big one. And then the experience of working with Lennon was a trip too, because watching how his method of doing things was really trippy for me, because he operated in a way like I did, where we couldn't read music, and I was the only one in there that couldn't besides him. The rest of the band did. Oh. So I was kind of left to my own devices to just do what I do. And that's why I was hired, apparently. So that whole experience was great. And even when you think about it, the first one was with Bowie, and the second one is John Lennon, who was always my favorite Beatle anyway. I mean, him and George were, and John was, it was an experience because I didn't realize how well he could play guitar. He was a really great guitar player.
Oh, I didn't really know that. Yeah.
And then just the whole experience of me being, more of a wild card or a loose cannon with guys playing to charts was really cool. Plus the whole experience of being around John and becoming friends with him and Yoko was really cool. And the third one out of the big three would be about 4 or 5 years ago. I went to Chicago to see a friend that we wanted to see the Bowie exhibit there when they were moving it around, Mm-hmm. I didn't really want to go, but he bought me a ticket and I couldn't say no. So I went and ended up at Buddy Guy's Club in Chicago. and Edgar Winter was playing that night. He was honoring Johnny's gig, who had passed away a few months earlier. And Edgar played on one of my records many years ago, and I went and said hi, and he invited me to play, and I got him on stage, and in the middle of me playing a few tunes, Buddy walked in, because it was his Club Legends.
Yeah.
And I went, holy shit, because I saw Buddy the first time I was like 17 or 18 years old, and he blew my hair off, man. It was amazing. The guy, you know, and I thought, holy shit. Anyway, a mutual friend introduced us, and Buddy said, man, you play some mean-ass blues, man. He says, you know what, I do this was in December of 15, maybe. And so, yeah, I do a residency here at my club every January. You're invited to come back anytime you want. So I did.
Wow.
And,
so you hung out with Buddy and played with him.
Yeah. So I came back that January and I sat in with Buddy for a couple of nights. And I did it a few years in a row. And that blew me away. I got up the next morning and it was freezing outside. Chicago, winter, January. I was so buzzed out from the experience that I got up the next day and I had to walk it off because I was going to do it again that night. And I'm walking up Lakeshore, you know, right on the lake, freezing my butt off. And I finally walked it off, you know, but that was one of the major experiences as far as buzz value goes.
That's cool. I've seen him many times, but it's always, in fact, I saw him once at the Beacon. But it's always funny because a different Buddy guy will show up. Like one night it'll be the soulful Buddy guy. And the next night, you know, maybe he's had some drinks and it's like motherfucker Buddy guy, you know, and it's just really funny. You never know, but he's always killing it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, with Buddy is after I had done that, every time he was close to anywhere I was, I'd just go to the gig and I'd end up getting called to sit in. So I've sat in with Buddy at BB King's and, you know, some other gigs. And you're right. Some nights he'd be just tearing some guy in the audience's asshole out. Somebody did the wrong look or said something, and then Buddy would just ream the guy, which I'm standing on the stage laughing my ass off. Some nights Buddy would walk in and he talks to you, and some nights he doesn't. And he's Buddy, man, and it's great.
Yeah.
The aspect of him is very cool.
He'll be like, I've seen him do that. He went over to someone, can you name one of my albums? And they couldn't or something. And he's like, what are you fucking kidding me? I've got, he tore him up. That's exactly what happened.
Oh yeah, he'll do that. Yep.
You're originally from Brooklyn.
Yeah.
What was your childhood like growing up?
I mean, I grew up in a middle class. Actually, when I was little, we lived in some pretty, ghetto-y kind of Red Hook and East New York and places like that.
Wow, East New York is rough.
Yeah, and then my dad became a cop at one point, and then we lived in Sheepshead Bay for a while, which is like serious upscale as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. I played baseball. I did things that kids in Brooklyn did. Played stickball, stoopball, got in trouble. I did everything, that kids do in Brooklyn. It was a completely different world back then.
Yeah. And
it was a fun way to grow up, And then my father moved to Staten Island when I was about 12 or 13, and I turned into Satan.
What happened there? Just being a teenager?
Being that, and also everybody else, Staten Island at that point had been sort of the lost borough of New York City because there was no direct bridge to get there from the city. You had to take a ferry.
Right.
So the island was not developed like Brooklyn was. Half that island was forest when I moved there, and the people there didn't want anybody from Brooklyn. I get it. I didn't get it then. So, anybody coming from Brooklyn, we had a hard time. Yeah. So, there were a lot of fistfights and bullshit with the bullies, and these kids were just reflecting what their parents were telling them.
Yeah, sure.
But I didn't like it there. I didn't like the school, but I started playing ball again, and then the music kicked in. Once that happened, everything changed.
What was the turning point for that? Like, how did that happen?
When it was.
You're the first guy I haven't smoked a cigarette. I can't even remember. I'm watching you and I'm like, I haven't felt like I wanted a cigarette. You're enjoying those so much.
Well, I can help. The
music, when did it kick in?
Yeah, it was, my parents listened to music in the house. My mother liked to listen to country music and stuff like that. My father was that generation of Sinatra, big bands and all that thing.
Sure.
But nobody played any instruments, nobody in any part of the family. And when I saw the Beatles on TV, the first thing that got my attention was the amount of chaos and excitement that I saw in Ed Sullivan. And then the next day at school, I wasn't the only one. That really affected every kid.
Yeah.
And so I got interested in it first from a point of like, I'd never seen anything like that before. It was like it was a major phenomenon. It was, it's really hard to put into words what the experience was like, but it triggered me to want to play.
Yeah.
So in hindsight, it wasn't until I was playing for a little while that I actually realized I was enjoying it. And so I just, I got obsessive with it and I just played and played and played and played. And in time it got better and better. And here I am.
And you knew that's what you wanted to do pretty much once you started playing.
Oh, once I got to the point where I really felt that guitar in my hands felt natural. Yeah, that was it.
Man, I spoke to somebody else and I'm trying, Reggie and Kenny Washington. Did you play with those guys ever?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're both they're a little younger than you, but guys from there. Let's talk about some other outside stuff you have going on. I like that you're a hustler. So you have some signature pedals. You have guitarfetish.com. You have slick guitars, guitar straps. Talk about all those things and then talk about like, where did that hustle come from? I admire your work ethic.
It started with Guitar Fetish with the slick products I came off the last Bowie tour and I had cases that were delivered after the tour, my amps and guitars and accessories in it. And I was looking for something one day. I must have been back for a year or more. And I found this box and it had a bunch of brand new black leather guitar straps in it. I go, what am I going to do with all these? I don't know what possessed me, but I started messing around with them, doing artwork on them. And I started wearing them and I liked them. And then people were liking them. And they're going, could you make me one? I would just give them the one I had and I'd make another one. And one day I had gone up to see my friend Jay Abend, who is the owner of Guitar Fetish and the founder of Guitar Fetish up in Massachusetts, and just for visit, and I brought some straps with me that I just finished making. And I just walked in and I threw them on his kitchen table. He said, what are those? He goes, I made those. He goes, we got to do something with these. So we started off with that. And I worked for 4 months straight, 6 days a week, making all kinds of samples and picking out what we wanted to do. So he got them manufactured and put them up on the site. And then we added the guitars a few years later, along with the pickups. So we got a whole line of stuff now. And there was no thought behind, turning it into any kind of a business, but I mean, there was in a way, because I wouldn't have brought the straps with me if I didn't, think that.
Yeah.
I'm just going to take a shot here, see what he thinks. I'm not going to pitch the guy or nothing.
Right.
Let him decide for himself if he thinks these are cool. And he did, and here we are, So it wasn't really a preconceived thought when I started doing it. It was an accident where I thought, you know what, these are kind of cool. People seem to like them. So I'll bring.
Where'd you get into art, man? Because I saw them on the Sideman movie. They're pretty fucking cool. Everything, the jackets, everything was pretty cool looking.
I started doing when I bought the house I'm in now. It's an old 1930s kind of cabin, but it was in bad shape. I only bought it thinking I'd hold on to it for a year. That was 17 years ago. But yeah, but it needed work. I just said, screw it, I'll renovate the whole building. So in the course of that, the old windows, I kept them. And did artwork on them. I painted them and shit. So that's kind of what started it.
Very
As
cool.
a kid, I liked art, but I couldn't draw. I was very frustrated by that. And I still can't. I don't know what, I can see it in my head, but I can't draw. But I can paint, and I colors and weird shit, you know. And that's where the art came from for all the straps and everything.
So now what products are you selling on Guitar Fetish?
Well, we got straps. We've, you know, some of them artwork, some of them don't. Leather straps. We've got a lot of different guitars, which are slightly relict. You know what I mean? They're just, we didn't put clear coat on them. You know what I mean? So the paint is not high glossy. So they look a little, you know, antiqued. You know, with the tuning heads, hardware besides that, a lot of pickups, different ones that are really good. So those are the main things we do.
Very cool.
And they're inside the Guitar Fetish site.
Guitarfetish.com.
Yeah.
Cool. And talk about your signature pedals.
There's one, it's with Daredevil pedals, and I'd have to open the pedal up. The name of it is so weird. It's an octave fuzz pedal with a noise gate in it.
Yeah, I saw the demo. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
It was really cool.
The idea of that is I don't really use overdrive pedals. Like the amps do that. But I like fuzz because to me, fuzz falls into the area of a sound effect, like an echo or a reverb.
Sure.
It's not meant to overdrive the amp. It's meant to sound all distorted and shitty and fuzzy.
Right.
You know.
That's
yeah.
Very cool. Where did your work ethic come from? And also, like, what is, if there is one, what's the emotional payoff for you for being a hustler?
The emotional payoff for being a hustler is very simple. Is that if I hustle, whether it be gigs or especially since I've been doing the guitar straps and all that, is that it's a stream of income that adds to my income.
Right.
And the more of that stuff that I can do, the less I'm apt to have to take a gig I don't want.
I totally get that, man.
Freedom. That's the emotional payoff is you know, peace of mind, really, because if you hustle enough, when it starts to pay off, you've got that comfort that you know, okay, things are coming in here.
Yeah.
So one thing goes haywire for a little while, the other one will compensate for it.
Yeah. Totally get that. Slick, what were some of the low points or dark periods you've had to deal with throughout life, and how did you get through them?
God, you know, as a kid, everything was relatively smooth, and my mother had some problems where when I was about 6 years old, she was taken to some hospital somewhere, and I didn't see her for a year. So I lived at my grandmother's house.
Holy crap.
Mother's for a whole year. I went to school there and everything. But at the time, it seemed normal. I don't have any memories of missing my mother or anything like that. I'm sure I did, but I don't remember that part. And my father didn't really come by that often to see me either. So I was quite happy to be where I was.
Wow.
In hindsight, that probably dictated some things that happened later on in life, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's heavy shit. Well, I mean, you're a dad. You know what that's like. You wouldn't do that to your kids.
No.
Yeah.
But, you know, in the case of my mother, there was something really wrong that had to be taken care of. And then she ended up passing away anyway when she was 38. Now, that was a very intense situation because there was no warning and no illness. Just gone in a flash. And I just happened to be at my dad's house. I was, you know, staying at girlfriends' houses and this, that, and the other thing. I was happened to be there the night before it happened. So I was there, you know, and that was very dark. And that was something that affected me for quite a while afterwards.
You were an only child, or do you have any other brothers?
No, I had 3 sisters, you know, and all younger. And I was 19 at the time.
Wow.
And My mother was one of my best friends on the planet. She loved the music and stuff like that. I'd come home from, being out and I'd catch her. Even in high school, I'd walk in the house after school and she's playing my Beatle records and stuff like that. I thought, well, this is cool,
So she was your music buddy in a sense
Yeah.
as well. Yeah. Wow, man. I'm sorry about that. That's heavy shit, man.
Well, it's a very long time ago and all of that other stuff's long gone, but it's it had an effect. It definitely did.
Well, thank you for sharing that, man. Any things that you've done that were out of your comfort zone at the time, but you did them anyway, and they turned into be, the hindsight 2020 good breaks?
Some yes and some no. Like narrating the film.
Yeah.
Way out of my comfort zone. But I didn't equate that to the fact that I'd already done some speaking things. I could do it, but I never did it in the arena of being in a film. You know what I mean? That's permanent.
Yeah.
If you do a speaking thing live and it sucks, it's gone. Well, not
right.
It's all over the internet, but
yeah.
But it's not a movie with the BBC. It's a different ballgame.
Yeah.
Doing totally. The first instrumental record I did in 1991 with Middle Blade Records, a friend of mine said, "Hey, you got a new record out? Great." I said, "No, I don't." So I went in one of the magazines and I saw that Middle Blade had licensed my Razor Sharp album from Capitol Records.
I was thinking Metal Blade. I couldn't see you on Metal Blade either.
Well, there's a reason for that. Is so when I saw that, my nose got out of joint. I go, these fucking record companies, they could at least, even though they're not going to pay me because I never recoup, they can at least tell me the damn thing is being licensed.
So, Earl, notice this pattern. You got all these people ghosting. Nobody tells you anything here, man.
I'm not the only one. It's everybody all the time. The difference is I can't sit down on that shit.
That would bother me, to be honest.
Yeah, I make I'm just like, okay, what the fuck? As opposed to just, making believe everything was cool when it's not cool.
Yeah.
So I contact Metal Blade and I get the president on the phone, Brian Slagle. It turns out the reason that he licensed the record because he was a fan of mine. So I went and hung out with him when we met. He said, "You ever think about doing an instrumental record?" "Oh yeah, I just finished writing a bunch of them. I didn't write shit." So I called a bass player and a drummer friend of mine, and we went in. I furiously wrote like 3 things and demoed them real quick and brought them back to Metal Blade, and I went ahead and did the record.
That's really cool. Wow, that's making lemonade out of lemons, man.
Oh yeah.
Good for you. That's awesome. Hey, let's talk about guitars and gear for a few minutes. What's your go-to guitar right now? And what other 2 would round out your top 3? And has that changed over the years?
It goes back and forth. Right now I've been using my Nash Telly a lot. I love that thing. I have an SG Junior that's about 10 or 12 years old that kicks butt. I use that. I've got a couple of Firebirds, the low end models actually. One's got P90s and one's got mini humbuckers in them. I've got one in England that lives at Glen Matlock's house that I bought there, so I don't have to carry a guitar when I go over. Huh. And then I got my Slick guitar Strat, which I use as well.
The Slick guitars, what shapes do they come in?
All the traditional stuff, because we had thought about messing around with them and thought, you know what, that's going to backfire.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. So, it takes Telly Strats, little, Les Paul bodies, the stuff that people want.
Yes. Best guitar and best amp you've ever played?
Ooh. The best amp and guitar, you know what? That changes in time,
Sure.
It really does. One of the best guitars I've ever played and still have is my 1968 Gibson J45.
Interesting.
I love that guitar. And my Nash Telly is really up there. It really is. I mean, I live with that thing. I love it. As far as amps go, I'm using these Supros now.
The new ones?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They kick ass. I love those. And I've got my old Ampegs here, the early 70s ones. A VT40, a VT22, a V4 head, and those things are amazing. So I wouldn't say there's any one.
Yeah.
It all depends on what I'm doing. And also my head changes in time.
Sure.
But the one thing that has been a constant my whole life is Telecasters.
What would you play before Nash? What kind of tele did you play before the Nash?
I was using the 72 reissue a lot. The road worn reissue one.
Who's some of the favorite players you've enjoyed jamming with over the years, guitarists or otherwise?
Shit, Buddy Guy.
Yeah, that had to be pretty bad. I know. I like that poster behind you, man.
Oh, can you see Buddy up there?
Yeah, it looks cool.
Somebody, you know what? I was given that in Texas by a friend as a little award for helping out with some things down there.
That's cool. It's a nice poster.
It's really cool. But Buddy, on the last thing we did with this Bowie band thing with Charlie Sexton.
Yeah.
Man, out of all the guitar players I've ever been in a band with or toured with on a basis like that, he was the best.
Really? He's with Dylan now, right? Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, he had some time off and he came out with us for 2 months and we just hit it off on day one playing together.
That's cool, man.
Really hell of a guitar team. Drummers. I loved what the last Bowie band was Sterling Campbell, one of my favorite drummers. And my son, Lee, who's been playing with me pretty steadily for at least about 5 years on a couple of records I did that have yet to be released because I don't know what to do with the friggin' things. And he did the Earl Slick Bernard Fowler station tour, and he did those Bowie tours as well.
On drums?
Yes.
Very cool.
He did the 2018, 2019 tours with us, and he will be touring with us again. So him and Sterling are two of my favorite drummers.
That's got to be cool playing with your son.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's got to be nice, man.
And I got somebody to help carry my bag and stuff. See this, he'll love that one.
Yeah, I'm sure. Desert Island Discs, man, top 3, just for now. I know that could change any moment.
Beggars Banquet.
Great record, man.
That changes every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've got a number of blues compilations here that have everybody on them. Everything from Lightning Hopkins to Buddy, you name it. One of those, any one of them that I would pick, I would be happy to have with me. And the Shine a Light audio, the Rolling Stones Shine a Light movie that Scorsese, the audio from that.
I know that movie. What did you like about that?
That kicked ass. I mean, first of all, the way it was shot, but the band was on fire. They really were. I mean, that was the film kicked ass. The audio holds up too without the visual. Because sometimes the audio doesn't hold up if you get the visual out of it.
So you played with Mick and Keith. Any others? And Bernard.
Bernard.
Anybody else in the Stones that you've played with?
Why am I having to think about that?
Well, it's not. You've played with a shit ton of people, man. It's not like you got like a dozen people to think about. You're probably talking about hundreds.
No, just Mick and Keith. But I would love to do something with Ronnie at one point, which is never out of the question. You never know. There
you go. We're putting it out there. You want to do something with Ronnie, and I want him on my show. So we got to hook each other up if that happens.
Well, I hopefully I'll run into him when I go back to London. We'll see.
What have been some of the sacrifices that you've had to make to become so proficient and good at what you do?
I don't know if I've made any sacrifices. I think more the people around me did.
Yeah.
Because, this is something that I picked up when I was a kid, and it's in my DNA since then.
Yeah.
So I've just been doing it, which entails a lot of time, a lot of work, a lot of times where you're gone for extended periods of time. Sometimes when you're home, you're gone for extended periods of time. Yeah. It's not so much that I sacrificed anything. I didn't really. People around me had to, though.
Yeah. Anything in particular?
Well, me missing kids' birthdays because I'm on the road.
Sure.
Somebody in your family dies, you miss that. I mean, you miss all the normal life stuff.
Yeah.
That I mean, God forbid if it's something really bad that you have to come back for, you just can't walk off of middle of a tour.
Yeah.
Because it's your kid's birthday. Now that sucks,
yeah.
But the kids, if they grow up with it, they have a certain understanding of that.
Yeah.
Even though it probably does suck for them.
Right.
But yeah, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
I totally get it. What do you think is the best decision you ever made?
I don't know. It's so much that I've made decisions. I guess I have. I think one of the best decisions I actually made as an adult was getting my ass out of the business for 4 years, taking a hike. Because little did I realize at the time what I was doing was because I let it all I got rid of all of it. I was just living a completely different life, which unbeknownst to me was refreshing my old one.
Isn't it weird how that works, isn't it?
It is weird because when I came back, I was better than I was. I had a better understanding of things, and my maturity level shot up 100-fold from what it was.
Yeah.
But that's also when you're in something so long, and it does have ups and downs all the time. After a while, you get lost in that storm of bullshit.
Yeah.
And you don't know which way's up, which is why I left. It clarified all that.
Good move.
Without thinking about it.
This is a tough one. What do you like most about yourself?
God. I think I like the fact that I can look in the mirror and say, you ain't such a bad guy. You ain't the smartest guy in the world. You ain't the best guy in the world, but you ain't a bad guy. You run a straight game.
I like that. You run a straight game. I dig that.
Speaking of myself in the third party.
Yeah, that's cool though. Well, when you're looking in the mirror, you're talking to you, so maybe it's not. Exactly. I don't know how that works.
Make believe it's somebody else that you like.
Yeah, man. What the hell? Flip side, if there's one thing you could change about yourself, what would you do? What would that thing be?
I think the one thing I would change about myself is learning how to say no more.
Interesting. I'm surprised because you seem to be like pretty clear on what you will and won't do.
I am in business for the most. The other part is the thing I don't do well. If there were one thing I would change, it would be that I would be able to deal with things outside of my guitar more efficiently.
Yeah, I get that.
But I'm kind of built like that. There are certain quirks about that do cause me problems on occasion. But, there's things that I just don't know how to do. And you know what? Things I don't really give a shit about.
I think it's important to be good with that with yourself. I mean, like there's, you always want to be a better person, but I think there's certain things like, residual things that you have that I think it's and in my opinion anyway, like I know there's certain things about me that I'm like, I'm okay with that. And I know it's a weakness. I know it could be better, but I'm okay. I'm good with it.
The way I view it like this, I don't even look at them as weaknesses. I just look at them as just part of me. And some of it is not acceptable to everybody else. Some of it's not acceptable to me. And a lot of that stuff, either I can't change it, or I really don't want to.
Yeah, you're okay with it.
I'm okay with it. Obviously, you can change anything you want, but to me, I can't spend all day changing everything that I don't like, especially anything you don't like.
Yeah, right on, man. Happiest moment or time in your life?
I mean, there have been a few periods during my life that were like that, I would think the age of around the 3rd through the 5th grade in school in Brooklyn, I just remember it as being pretty cool.
So like 9 to 11.
Yeah. Yeah. There was no, looking back on it, there was no conscious thought about anything being weird or wrong or anything like that.
It was relaxing.
It was fun, yeah.
How about as an adult?
As an adult, there have been periods of time when I was in Tahoe and out of the business that were great. It's like anything else. I could probably sit here and name a dozen times that it was like that. And then a dozen times when it wasn't like that.
Yeah.
So there isn't one definitive thing. It's just a state of mind is really what it is.
Yeah.
Not that you can attach it to a period of time, or you can attach it to an event. But what it really is how you're feeling at that point.
Yeah. Right.
Are you feeling secure, and are you feeling calm and clear-headed and relaxed?
Yeah.
And that's not a constant state by any stretch.
No, not if you are a functioning human being.
Exactly.
I may know the answer to this, but I'm just curious. Biggest influence on you musically and then personally?
The biggest influence, the Stones, hands down, because when I got into playing, the Stones didn't hit. You see, people look at the British invasion period of 1964, that like the Beatles and the Stones and everything all happened on the same day. It didn't.
Yeah.
The Beatles came on the Ed Sullivan Show, and up to that point, I don't think I was conscious of anything that was going on with that. So once the Beatles started, Sullivan got us hooked on them. He started bringing more of them over, and one of the first ones was the Stones. And the first time I saw that, it turned everything upside down. I started buying the records. That in turn got me into buying the blues records and the Chuck Berry records and all that stuff, and that's where I learned how to play, listening to the Stones and listening to the records, because the first couple albums were covers of all that stuff.
Yes. Yeah. It's wild, isn't it? Hard to believe.
This is cool shit. I need to go buy this stuff. So I searched out and got the records. And that was a major influence on me. And I think influences over time have come from different places. As far as my family would go, I'm not sure off the top of my head about me having role models or influences coming out of that. They came from the outside. They came from musicians, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny when you were talking about, the Stones doing covers, what a great education that used to be when you go down to a record store and you're looking at the back and you see who wrote that song, and then you go look for the album.
Yeah.
That was such a good education. Then I remember that. That was great. It's somehow, not that you can't get that on the internet, but I don't know. It was more tactile, maybe. I don't know. It just seems to sink in.
Is that when you bought a record, it was in a big enough format that had liner notes that you could see without a microscope.
Yeah.
And the idea of having that physical piece of vinyl in a cover that had text on it that told you about what it was that you bought, it described everything in that thing.
Yeah.
All in one. Now, if you find something and you download it, you buy it from iTunes or something like that, it's not going to give you all that much info.
Oh, they give you almost nothing.
Yeah, so you need to go and search it. So now a one-step process is a 10-step process, and it keeps people from searching things out, because in the process of making things more simple, they've complicated shit beyond comprehension.
Yeah. And it doesn't stick in as well as it used to. It seems to.
Because whatever it is today isn't worth shit tomorrow.
Yeah.
I mean, everything's moving so fast. It's like nobody has the ability to digest what's happening now, because as now is happening, more now things are happening seconds later. So which now do you want?
Well, the other thing is, when you have to work hard to do, like, you have to actually go down to a store or go to a library, there's a lot of effort expanded in that. Yeah. And I think whenever you have more vested in anything, it means more to you, and you tend to retain it more, sort of.
Sure, it does. It's the same thing as, like, if you're going to buy a new car or a guitar or anything, that if you work for that and you put that money aside and you buy that thing, that has a lot more value, because you're not going to tend to mistreat that thing, because you're too damn hard to get it.
Yeah.
But if somebody gives you stuff for nothing, the value is taken right out of it.
Absolutely.
All this pay-for-play stuff with the bands. If the band wants to get a record contract, they have to do everything themselves, and it's just handed over to the record company. And how can that be valuable to the record company?
Yeah, that's a very good point.
No vested interest in it whatsoever. Yeah. It's some idiot that wants to keep his job by signing the right thing, which means he signs nothing, because if you sign nothing, you can't get in trouble for a long time. Sign one bad thing and you're looking for a job. So, and that's nothing new. But now it's gotten to the point where it's ridiculous, because nobody's out there to help you develop what you have.
Right.
With us, is the same value with my career, is that, I put in a hell of a lot of time and hours before I got any success. So when I got the success, I felt, wow, I worked hard and I got a result. That gives value to the result.
Yeah. Any hobbies outside of music and art?
I used to do a lot more outdoor stuff. But lately, you know what it is too, is I've lived here long enough where I've done all the outdoor stuff around here. And that was one. Dogs. I love Newfoundland dogs. That would be my biggest. And that's a hobby / lifestyle thing.
Do you still have dogs?
Not now. I lost my last one last May. So
sorry, man.
Waiting a while till the time is right.
Yeah.
Which isn't immediate, because I'm going to be, there's too many ifs about the next year's schedule.
Yeah.
And when you get any kind of an animal, you need to spend a good deal of time at the beginning to get them in order, so that, you've got a well adjusted, whether it be a dog or cat or any goldfish, don't matter, but, dogs and cats and stuff,
Yeah. What is a Newfoundland dog? What does that look like? Is it big?
Yes. Like 140.
Oh, that's massive, man. That's like a people.
Yeah.
Wow.
Some people say they think they're black Saint Bernards, or they're not. And if you look at the two dogs together, the only thing similar is that they're really big, but they got very long hair. They swim. They're water rescue dogs, which is kind of interesting for a dog of that size.
Yeah, that is weird.
I think they might be the strongest, or one of the strongest swimmers. I know they're one of the strongest swimmers. They got webbed feet. They're real mellow.
How'd you get into that?
It's funny. I was living in Venice Beach a really long time ago, and there was a guy that used to walk out on the beach with the dog. And after looking at it out my window a number of times, I went downstairs and said hi to the guy, and I met the dogs. So every time he passed by, I go down there, and I got interested in the dogs, but I couldn't have one at the time. I was in an apartment, So I did a whole lot of research over time just because I was interested in it. And then when the time was right, I got my first one, which was 1997, I think.
How many have you had?
3.
That's cool. Favorite place you've traveled, man? You've been all over the world.
Oh, God. I mean, there's a lot of places I really liked when I traveled. I love going to Japan. I was just over there like a month ago. I love going over to the UK. The UK never gets boring to me.
What do you like about it most?
The culture. I know a lot of musicians over there, a lot of players. I also like when you leave London and you get into these small towns, they still look like little fairy tale.
With the town center. That's so cool. I love a town center, and they have the car boot on Saturdays or something.
Right. And, churches that are, 800 years old or 1,000 years old and, all that kind of stuff. Even though London itself has definitely changed a lot, there's still areas of London, they still break quaint old, what I call old English.
Yeah. Talk about a specific experience that changed your life or changed the way you think about things.
Ooh, I think when I got cleaned up, that was a big one.
When was that?
88.
Did you go to a program, or what did you get? Like, was it getting sober, or you just stopped drinking, or?
No, I had some help, but it was an eye opener down the line. It definitely was a life-changing thing. The details are really not important because it wasn't anything anybody else hasn't done either.
Sure.
I never looked at it like I did this great thing.
Yeah.
It's like, giving a bank robber a gold star because you didn't rob a bank that day.
Well, no, you got to give yourself more credit. It's not an easy thing to do, man. There's a lot of changes involved in there, man. And anybody who gets sober is fucking...
I hate even going there with that because it's the same old story like the VH1, where are they now? I got fucked up and then I got my life is so good. The thing was, I got cleaned up, my life went to hell in a handbasket. Because that's when I went to Tahoe, was after that.
Oh, okay. Hold on a second.
Here's an eye opener for you. Let me get cleaned up and get things better, and everything felt exploded.
Yeah, but your reaction to that, man, you got to give yourself credit for that. You didn't go back to using.
Oh no.
That's what I'm saying, though, man. That's like, okay, let me put your feet right to the fire. That's a big thing, man. I give you a lot of credit for that.
I really, I operate better when I'm stoned or drunk than I do when I'm not, and in certain ways. As far as being responsible, obviously, not having substance involved is probably a plus. But there's some instances where being, clean sucks, and some of them where it's like way better. But the idea of going back is it's passed a long time ago.
Man, that is a very honest comment. What you just said.
I'm honest.
That is a really, that's a very honest comment, though. Like, man, so I miss getting fucked up once in a while, but
it's not in the cards. Not today.
Yeah. Good for you, man.
Tomorrow. Today, I'll take a pass on getting fucked up.
Yeah, man. That's pretty honest.
All I got to do is wake up in the morning and look at the news, and that's fucked up enough right there, right?
Yeah, man. That's good, man. Thank you. That is very, can't get more honest than that, can you?
It is what it is, man. I'm not going to, too, I don't regret. I had a blast.
Yeah.
I loved the way my life worked until the very end, and then I didn't like the way it worked.
Yeah. Well, that's not what it usually happens. It's like, it was fun.
Not all the time.
A common quote that I hear when I'm talking to guys who got sober is like, some version of it was fun until it wasn't.
Until it wasn't.
Yeah.
And I look at it like, by no means am I one of a kind or unique. A lot of people,
sure,
and some people don't get out of it, and some people do. I was one of the lucky ones that survived all that shit.
Yeah.
Like I said, it is not to say that it's not like I think about getting loaded, but it's like, hey, you know what? Be nice to get fucked up once in a while, but
Yeah, sure, man. I get that. I totally get it. Good for you, man. Really good. Favorite New York City food you miss?
ooh, I really miss what Italian food used to be. I mean, when my nephew tells me, "Hey, we're going for Italian food," I go, "Where are you going?" He said, "Olive Garden."
Carrabba's. Yeah,
yeah. I'm gonna call a cop. You're going to jail.
Yeah, that's funny. Oh my God. Where did you like to go?
I mean, I would basically go to Little Italy or Brooklyn or something and basically walk in any place and it was okay. But,
Yeah.
it's globalization. Everything now has been homogenized, globalized. And there's a few places left in Little Italy. Angelo's is probably the best one.
They're really very commercial down. It's all geared for tourists. I noticed that last couple of times.
Well, you know what? Little Italy kind of shrunk in the last 25 or 30 years.
It's like Chinatown.
Chinatown has kind of taken over. So what's left of it, it's really turned into Guido Central, man. It's bad. It's really bad.
And last question, man. And listen, I really want to thank you. You've been really cool, really honest. You're a very sincere guy. And I really, really appreciate that about a human being more than anything else, man. I hate bullshit. And I just really appreciate when someone's open and honest. So thank you. Biggest change in your personality over the last 10 years, and how much of that has been intentional and how much is just a natural part of aging?
I think it's kind of funny you grabbed the last 10 years because there's probably been more changes in the last 10 years than it has been in any period in my life.
Really?
Yeah. I think it's just experience after a while of being around here long enough that I don't tend to get as wound up as often about stuff. I still do. Depending on what the situation is, but I don't worry so much about, okay, what's going to happen next year? Oh my God, I better get a gig. I better make sure that my schedule is filled up and everything's in order and all of that neurotic shit that causes you to have extreme anxiety problems.
Yeah.
I try to, it wasn't even, some of it was conscious to a point. I think that once I started to back off and leave things the hell alone, they started to work a little smoother. And then once I realized that, I started intentionally doing it, where I go, you know what? That situation doesn't need to be taken care of right now. Leave it alone and come back to it later. And then maybe it'll make more sense. If it doesn't, cut it loose instead of obsessing on it until it did what I wanted it to do.
Are you spiritual? Because it sounds like a lot of what you're saying is, man, I've surrendered and I'm just at peace with what comes next.
I think what it is, I'm sick and tired of being anxiety. How do I stop this shit?
Hey, that's a valid,
I've had enough.
Yeah.
I've had enough bullshit. And a lot of the bullshit that I was pointing fingers at were really me dealing with things a certain way that just didn't work.
Good for you that you recognize that.
Well, it was so in my face that I'm going, it's like one of these things where you get up and you go to the supermarket or you go to get gas in your car. Everybody's in your way. Everybody's slow. Everybody's an asshole. That guy needs to shut up. That guy's ugly, and you go, wait a minute, dude. It's not possible that everybody in this supermarket right now is an asshole. It's just not possible. So maybe you need to have a look at that.
Yeah.
For you, man. Yeah, that's just kind of, it makes things easier to just recognize when your head's up your ass and it ain't possible that the entire world is out to aggravate you every day. And if you start to catch that, then you got to think that's okay. And sometimes it's so profound that you don't see it until you got yourself wound up all the hell, and then you go, okay, I got to step back here and have a look at this.
And it always comes to what is my role in this, because that's what's fixable anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of it's another one of these things where it's not magic or anything, and it doesn't take somebody who has like, you know, some extensive sixth sense to see things. It just comes from okay, this shit isn't working, and I'm not handling this thing all that well. What the hell's going on? And just go from there. And it's really not a conscious thought most of the time anymore.
Yeah.
That's been a big change over the last 10 years.
So you're a lot more laid back. If I asked somebody who knew you really, if I asked like the girlfriend or something,
No.
maybe not.
No, you're not going to hear that. No. I mean, I've changed. Maybe I'm a legend in my own mind, as Clint Eastwood said, but
so if I call up Mark Platty and I said, how is he more laid back today?
Hell no. No. No, Mark was out on the road with me earlier this year. Yeah. No,
he saw you in rare form.
Oh yeah. He saw me in yeah. I'm like game, if you want.
Oh man. Dude, listen, thank you for everything. I want to just go over again some of the cool stuff you got going on. Anytime you want to come back on the show, anything I can help you promote, the door is wide open. Please take advantage of that.
Oh, I will.
First of all, Rock and Roll Guns for Hire, Story of the Sideman. I saw this on maybe Netflix or no, Amazon Prime. Is that the best place to see it?
I didn't know it was on there.
Yeah, that's where I saw it. Yeah, so everybody check out the movie. Earl's in that. Rock and Roll Guns for Hire, Story of the Sideman, Earl Bernard Fowler. Great. It's really a good movie. Very cool.
What had Vimeo on, if you go on YouTube, Vimeo's got
No, you're right. That's where I saw it.
Yeah.
Because I remember I don't have a Vimeo app, so I had to just text it to myself. And so then when I'm in the gym on the treadmill, I would watch. Yeah, it's on Vimeo.
It's Vimeo.
Really cool movie. Check it out. It's really interesting. Also, Earl Slick Official on Facebook. Earl's doing some speaking. If you're in the UK, come check it out. It's a really good, how do I say it? Not act. What is it? It's a really good, it's entertaining hour and a half of hanging out with Earl. And it's got some great stories. And it's a lot of fun is what it is. I thought it was a lot of fun. Daredevil pedals, Earl Slick's custom pedal, the fuzz and the octave pedal combined. Guitarfetish.com. He's got leather jackets. He's got leather straps, leather underwear. No, I'm just kidding. Leather jackets, leather straps, and he's got slick guitars. And if people have questions like about the pickups and stuff, is there someone there they can contact about?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, they're really good about that too. I mean, if it's questions about anything, you just email them directly or call them, and they'll give you a response.
Great. Okay, so do that. And also
people that have bought the stuff, because obviously I didn't have to do it, but people said they've done it. And, people that have bought the stuff that had questions, they get them answered. So
very cool. And also you and Bernard Fowler are getting together again.
Yeah, there's a couple of things in the works for next year. And until I know what they are, I'm just going to shut up just in case they morph into something else. And
will that be on, Earl Slick Official on Facebook?
It will be. And this year I've actually backed way off on the social media. So when I do go on there now, if it's something important that is important to me.
Yeah.
And something that I think that the people that do go to that page, if it's important to them, then I'll put it up there. But I don't I got this thing. We could do a whole podcast. We should do a podcast about social media.
I'm down, man. We'll do it.
I tell you what, we will. It's incendiary. Things will start to catch fire. So I just can't deal.
Wait a minute. You don't have a good record with shit setting on fire, man. We're not doing this in my place.
Oh no, there's houses, cars. Yeah. I escape out of the fires though. So, but yeah, that's a whole thing that it started last year where I started thinking, you know what, you're starting to do the same shit everybody else does. You're going on there, you're counting likes. Who gives a shit? Count dollars, count
toxic.
gigs, you know? It's like, I mean, if somebody was depositing money in my account on Facebook, I'd go on every day.
There you go, man. Right.
They don't offer me a job. And you know what? You get caught up in living in a cyber world. I just assume call somebody on the phone or whatever. I don't need to be. People go, well, I messaged you on Facebook. I said, well, I never even checked those.
Yeah.
I don't even know where they are.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's, like I said, there's a whole show there.
Let's do it, man. You let me know when you're ready. We'll do it.
We will.
Earl Slick strikes back. I'm feeling this, man. Listen, man, thank you for everything. Did I miss anything? Is there anything else going on that you want to talk about that you got coming up? You need Earl Slick cigarettes, dude. I'm feeling that, man.
Yeah, give me an interview and a pack of cigarettes and I'll just smoke too much. No, I think we covered it, just about all of it. Yeah, we got the product stuff in, and anything, you know, there is a book in the works, but that we cannot talk about that yet.
Well, when it comes out,
actually, when they give me permission to talk about that,
send me a copy of it. I'll read it and we'll talk about it. That would be really cool.
Next year, but it's finished.
I'm not going anywhere.
And it should be handed in to the publishers within the next 2 weeks. So you talk, getting the book out is a lot different than a record. This won't be out till at least next summer.
Oh, when you're ready, man, hit me up. Come on, send me a copy. We'll promote it. We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
We'll go in depth. Listen, man, thank you for everything. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hang on a minute. Let me wrap up. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this show, please share it on your social media channels and just like Earl's page just because he said that he doesn't get caught up in likes anymore.
What's the way, man?
Yeah, there you go. Thanks very much to Earl Slick for coming on the show. Again, Daredevil pedals, Earl Slick pedal. It's a fuzz pedal with an octave. Rock and roll. What's that?
And a noise gate.
And a noise gate. I don't know what that is, even though I play guitar. I'm like the guy who drives the car and how to put the key in. That's it. And how to drive.
I'll send you a link to that. I actually described it in there, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I need to figure out what that is. Rock and Roll Guns for Hire, Story of the Sideman. Watch it on Vimeo.
You there?
I'm here, brother.
Yeah.
Earl Slick Official for UK speaking. Guitarfetish.com. And we are waiting with bated breath for the book and for the new project with Earl and Bernard Fowler. Make sure you go to everyonelovesguitar.com, sign up to get on our newsletter list so you and I can connect. And most important, remember that happiness is a choice, so choose wisely. Be nice, go play your guitar, and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. I'm out. Earl, thank you for everything, bro.
Bye.